Welcome everyone for the Ventura County Climate Emergency Council regular meeting scheduled today for Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. We're starting here at 12:02. We're meeting in the Atlantic Conference Room, Hall of Administration here at the County of Ventura. And we do have one of our council members who is remote, and it is due to one of the issues that we can have her be remote, and that is Council Member Marianne Parra. And so she is online with us. Heather, do you see her on the screen?
I do not.
Well, we know that she's going to be joining us remote, so.
Councilmember Parra, if you are online, please raise your hand.
Right, we don't see her yet, but we know that she will be joining us in that way. We are going then to the roll call. And could we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair White.
Here.
Councilmember Saeed.
Yeah.
Chair Munoz-Snell.
Here.
Councilmember DeTore.
Here.
Councilmember Bowling-Wistrom. Here. Councilmember Dora Corella.
No. It's another.
Councilmember Keith Carolla. He did let me know that he was going to be absent today. Councilmember Parra. Councilmember Camarillo.
Here.
And Councilmember Crowe.
Here.
We have a quorum then. Let's go to item number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. And Vice Chair White, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we are at item number 4, and that's oath of office for new council member, and that's Bill Camarillo. And we do have our clerk of the board, Mia Martinez, remotely. And so, Mia, can you see us here?
I can see you. Thank you, Board Member
Great.
Camarillo, for standing. So I'm just going to ask you to repeat after me. So raise your right hand and say, I state your name.
I, Bill Camarillo,
Do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend
do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
Your room is frozen.
Mia, you're frozen as well. So we're having some technical difficulties here.
Oh, there we go. Oh,
Are we
Okay,
back?
you're
There we
back.
go.
Yeah. Okay, you can continue.
There you go. Okay, I just got connection back. Okay, so we'll pick up where we left off. So against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing tag back, yeah, there you go. So it's faced the other way. Great, okay. And Councilmember Camarillo then represents the 10th of the 10 members that are here on the council. So this is a full council now, which is a good thing. So thank you for making it here today. Let's go on then to item number 5, approval of, you know what, before we do that, Bill, do you want to say anything further about who you are? Because this might be the first time you meet some of the members here.
So I met you guys last time, and I appreciate the opportunity to sit on this council. I'm excited to be here. I am the CEO of Agromin, which is one of California's largest organics waste recyclers, meeting all the challenges of California's high demands of greenhouse gas emission reduction. So we divert well over 1 million tons of organic waste annually, and we convert it into compost, which most of it goes back to agriculture to help minimize the use of water and pesticides and herbicide and chemical fertilizers. Also on the ag side to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this is right up my alley, and I'm excited to be a part of this program.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to just go around the table so that you know like who everyone is? So we'll start there.
Oh, okay, so I'm Scott DeForest.
Hi, Scott.
Forest District.
Yep.
So more park seating.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vanessa, District 5.
Vanessa, who just graduated a couple of weeks ago at CLU, really excited.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Very good, congratulations. You know me,
Yeah.
Chair Schnapp. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm Phil White. I represent Matt Levere's district.
Perfect.
Eric Crow, I'm the second at-large member.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm the Chief Sayed, I represent Jeff Photos.
Thank you. Wait, I do too.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. And is Councilmember Parra on yet? Just check.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great, okay, thank you.
Oh, there she is.
All right, super. So let's move on then to item number 5, which is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which took place April 18th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move approval of the April 18th minutes.
Okay,
of VCCEC.
thank you. Is there a second?
I did second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Said. Could we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair White,
Yes.
Councilmember Syed.
Yeah.
Chair Munoz-Snuff,
Yes.
Councilmember DeForest,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold-Wolschow. Yes. Councilmember Varela, that is Dora Varela. Councilmember Keith Parola. Councilmember Parra. If you can-
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Camarillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Crowe.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And let's go to item number 6, public comments for items not on the agenda. It looks like I do have a speaker request, and that is for someone, for something that is not on the agenda. Is that correct for David Gilbertson?
Oh, it was on the agenda.
It was on the
Yeah,
agenda.
item, let's see, 10.
Item
I
10.
apologize.
Okay, no problem, thank you. All right, so this is the time that we entertain public comments for items not on the agenda. So anyone in the audience here at our meeting, would you care to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, then let's go to our remote guests and see if there's anyone that wishes to speak. You can raise your hand, or you could take yourself off of mute. And we don't see anyone, right? Okay, all right, thank you. So correspondence agenda, there was nothing that was listed as part of this agenda item. So that's item number 7. So we'll move through that one then to our regular agenda item number 8. And that's where we're receiving an update from the county executive office staff. So Heather, would you like to present that item?
Yes, thank you, Chair Munoz. We just have a couple of updates on Wednesday. So tomorrow, May 31st, the CEO Sustainability Division will be hosting Cyclemania. It's a mini expo that is open to the public at the Ventura County Government Center, Hall of Administration. It's out in parking lot G. There's some flyers. Morel, did you want to add anything?
Yes, tomorrow's event will have a workshop both on bike safety and bike tune-up. So just educating the public about the ways that you can actually get on your bike if you have some, hesitations on riding a bike because of those. That's a good way for you to be informed. We'll also have various bike vendors and agencies that work in terms of public health and bike safety.
And then the second update is that the two most recent VCCEC recommendations will be going to the Planning Commission. And those recommendations that the Board of Supervisors reduce GHG emissions from new and existing County of Ventura owned buildings and facilities. And the second was for the board to create a program to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from existing residential and non-residential buildings. And these will be presented to the Ventura County Planning Commission on Thursday, June 1st. The PC hearing begins at 8:30 a.m. and it's in the supervisor's hearing room, which is just on the other side of that wall. There's entrance. And you are invited to attend and participate in public comment. I believe Vice Chair White will be there.
The date again?
That is Thursday, June 1st, and the hearing starts at 8:30. And I believe we're item number 6, so there'll be some brief administrative items, and then I think we're the only business item on the agenda.
Thank you.
And then we have tentatively scheduled these items to go to the Board of Supervisors. I think it's September 12th, but it's a Tuesday in September.
So by any chance this will be available remotely? I'm out of the town.
Yes, I will send you the information.
And so just to let everybody know that the process is whenever we agree on something that moves to then the Board of Supervisors, it needs to go to the Planning Commission first. And they don't necessarily kick it back to us for suggestions. I think they just provide input and then they move it forward to the Board of Supervisors for review. So we have like a 2-step process before the Board of Supervisors acts on what we recommend. Right. Any questions for Heather? All right. Any public comments? You can take yourself off of mute or raise your hand if you'd like to make any public comments on this item or on item number 8. Seeing none then. Any further discussion from the council here? No? No? All right. Seeing none. Then let's move on to item number 9. And that's receiving an update on the prior temporary advisory committees. And so Heather, do you want to lead us through that?
I just have some quick notes that that there's information included in your packets about the Climate Emergency Council's bylaws. So Article 6 provides guidance and limitations on the temporary advisory committees or tax can be used. And this is as a mechanism for Climate Emergency Council members to work together outside of public meetings while still complying with the Brown Act. And so these could be ad hoc committees is another name for temporary advisory committees. And just a little prior information on September 28th of 2021, the Climate Emergency Council approved the formation of 4 TACs. One was the evaluation criteria TAC, that focused on creating evaluation criteria for consistency in evaluating climate emergency council proposals. There's one focused on agriculture, soil productivity, and agricultural waste. A transportation tack that focused on topics related to electric vehicle infrastructure and deployment. And then an other issues tack, which focused on topics related to issues not addressed by the existing tacks. And I believe they focused on stationary sources, building energy, solid waste. What resulted from these tacks was 6 proposals that were approved by the Climate Emergency Council, and they're listed in the packet. I can go over them if you want, or Chair Stop, did you want to give a little bit more history about the different tacks?
Sure. So stepping back to then the 4 tacks that were identified, it actually ended up being a working session for us, and we handled it in 2 parts, I believe, a couple of years ago when Clay was in Heather's spot. And it was a solid discussion among the council who represented the CEC at that time. We delved into, could we categorize then those items that are in the climate emergency plan for the county of Ventura? So we drilled down then to these items that are listed here in the agenda packet. Not to say that nothing else was important, but when we categorized them, we felt that these were the 4 areas that we could concentrate on. And what it meant is that we could volunteer to serve on one of the tacks, but we couldn't serve on 2. And we needed to make sure that we were structured so that we didn't have a majority of this emergency council on 1 tack. So we all kind of found a special purpose for ourselves and identified, like I was part of the ag tack, and Councilmember Chavez at that time, who was in transportation, felt that, he wanted to serve on the transportation tack. So we kind of all like self-identified where we wanted to sit. And bless you. And then Vice Chair White served on then the other issues tack. Mick Ferris had served on the evaluation criteria tack, and I believe so did Dick Baldwin. So we all kind of found our space. And it was through those, through the tacks that we could actually then delve in a little further into that topic or that area of focus. It also meant that other issues tack, for whatever didn't fall into these categories, the other issues, if I'm not mistaken, dealt with the other items that could be of importance within the climate emergency plan for the county. And so based on that, then you see then the 6 proposals on page 2 of item 9. You see that these are what then has come through this climate emergency council for approval to move forward then to planning and the Board of Supervisors. The tacks could work, could set up a meeting, and I believe at that time then Clay was part of it, didn't have to be, but could be part of that. There was an invitation to invite other people to be part of it. We still have to abide by the Brown Act when we do meet in those tacks, but it allowed us to do a little bit more concentrated effort in terms of receiving information and or discussing what we could possibly then bring back to this group. There wasn't necessarily a recommendation that each of the tacks bring something back, but it was just a discussion. Sometimes those discussions then ended up having a special presentation among all of us. So we did have a presentation from ag and animals, and what then they provide or don't provide when it comes to GHG emission. And then, so that was a special presentation. And so sometimes that is a result of a TAC, that there's more information that needs to be shared with everybody in terms of that particular category. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, go ahead.
Well,
Councilmember Cameron.
Will the tax with the new members be updated or?
So this was kind of like a starting point. You know, we could evaluate this, we could take a look at something else. I felt like it worked well, but that's just a suggestion of where we go, because we did end up doing a little bit more homework in order then to get to this point last time. So it's just a suggestion we can consider.
Well, why did the tax, not continue, did members just leave or?
So it was a couple of reasons, is that we had, if I'm not mistaken, we had feedback from the county council that said that there was a possibility of like overstepping what we had been designed to do. Heather, do you have more information there?
Yes, I believe, Chair, Ms. Knopf, in reviewing, the files, and I don't have access to them all, but, it seemed like the meetings were becoming standardized and,
Versus like a temporary advisory,
correct.
like ad hoc versus, yeah. So that's what had happened. And we had to then disband them at the end of one of the years.
Yes, and it looks like, the evaluation criteria one was dissolved, what was that? In December of 2021, and then the 3 remaining tasks were dissolved, 5 months later in May.
Of 2022, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
If I could add to that, I think to answer your question, it got complicated to have these subcommittees of the bigger council committee we have here. And it got complicated because of the Brown Act, and the Brown Act says you can't have a quorum of members serving away from a public meeting. And so for people to get together and discuss ideas and proposals, it just was overly complicated. And I think county council ultimately agreed that it was unnecessarily complicated. And what I remember is that each one of us is available to come forward with a proposal to go to the board for something on climate action. And we're each allowed by the Brown Act to work with other people on the council, as long as we're not more than a quorum or more. If, for example, you and I wanted to work on a particular proposal, we could do that and then come back to the full council here and present it. Or if you had a proposal, you could on your own, without being on a technical advisory committee, come with a proposal. So my thinking is it just got complicated because of Brown Act requirements and the county council. I think just being careful, maybe overly careful on what we could and couldn't do, and it kind of got in the way of our functioning. But any one of us could come forward with ideas to go forward to the board.
Yes,
Seriously, yeah,
council
just-
member, yes, Victoria.
I am just aware of the fact that from previous public service, when you have just knowledge of, for the board information, when you have temporary ad hoc committees, I'm aware, I don't know the specifics, but I'm aware there are very strict rules. And when they start no longer becoming temporary, then there's a legal problem. And that's also one of the issues with temporary ad hocs. They need to be temporary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, so what you've been saying makes total sense. It starts becoming very complicated legally. Sometimes it's not worth, it creates more burden than the product produced.
Heather, did they say from the county council perspective, like what temporary could mean? Is that within the 2-year time frame of how we serve? Would that be less than a year? Would that be 6 months? Would that be?
So the notes that I have, they do not have, ad hoc committees, they're allowed to meet provided that these ad hoc committees do not have some continuing subject matter jurisdiction, and they do not have a meeting that's, on a fixed schedule. They generally serve a limited or single purpose. They are not meeting in, perpetually, and they are dissolved when their specific task is completed. So I don't know if there's a specific time frame. I think as long as it's not like a scheduled meeting we meet every month, and then as long as you're making progress towards something.
Yeah.
Proposal, so.
I was not aware of any tax in the past actually having a regularly scheduled meeting, and it was just like, catch as catch can, and, whatever happened to be available on the availability for the members, right? So it didn't fall into any of those categories that would say, they're out. Yes. go ahead,
So as
Councilmember
of today,
Cameron.
there are no active tax.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. So it's just an opportunity to move forward and maybe consider this as a way to move forward. Or we could just, continue to meet and individually, as long as we don't have a, quorum, we could talk about a different, one of these categories or something else, or individually then bring something to this council to recommend.
No, thank you for the update. I understand it. It seems, like yourself, I've served on many boards, and these are pretty targeted. If there's a proposal that's brought up and it requires further investigation, that's a good time to implement that. So that you can get that information back to the board. So I can see why these were all terminated.
But I do like the idea of smaller groups in terms of brainstorming ideas. Because
Yeah.
I think that's where when it was presented last time, I really like because obviously we meet once a month and become very formalized. If we had a smaller group, and if you were to just come up with ideas and bring it to the larger group of people, I think that's what I saw the benefit of having that. And definitely it's fine. Thank you for giving me the clarification, but I think just the idea of sort of brainstorming idea, that seemed like a good point to me,
Yeah.
at least. That's
Yeah.
pretty useful.
And I think you can do that without a tack. If you and I, for example, wanted to get together to talk about something that we have a common interest in, we could do that without formally establishing a tack, as long as we don't violate the law.
The meeting rules, yeah. Any other discussion?
It's just a
Yes,
general
Eric.
question. When you go look at Ventura County, climate action and stuff, it kind of will take you to the sustainability division. And then I guess my question is because, so you mentioned something last month about hiring some climate emergency technical people for the county. On the website, it mentions that 2 people were hired. And I guess I'm trying to understand, where does the sustainability division play into our roles? Does it make sense to have somebody give us an update on the current projects, upcoming projects? Maybe they have some goals or some avenues maybe they'd like this committee to focus on for them. How can we support them? I guess that's what.
So the staff is from the sustainability division. So Heather represents that group.
Okay.
And she is a staff member for this committee,
Gotcha.
this council. But this is not the only thing she does. She does other things within the department itself. Maybe you can give them an update as to who that's spearheaded by and where it sits within the county.
So the sustainability division is housed in the county executive office, and we're, a staff of
9, 10 people.
9 or 10 people. Some are contract workers, and so the sustainability officer is Alejandra Taez. She was here at the last meeting.
Okay.
Myself, I work on the climate action plan, but I also work on a program called the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance. Morel works on climate action plan implementation, and then we have another staff, Victor. You may have seen him last month. He also works on climate action plan implementation and a little bit on Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance initiatives. We have some other team members that focus a little bit more on the Tri-County Regional Energy Network, so 3C REN. That's sort of like an energy efficiency residential program. And then we also have a committee with the different departments, and we talk about the sustainability initiatives and the policies and programs that they're in charge of implementing. And so we can provide updates. I think back in February, I kind of provided a pretty detailed update on everything that the county was doing, and it was also attached to the March agenda packet. So I'm not sure if you received any of those, but I can forward it to you so you can just get an overview of all the county efforts.
I did, yeah. So I mean, that climate action plan is pretty detailed. I mean, this
Yes.
county implements all of them. We're gonna be in very good shape come 20, 30, 40, and 50. I guess I was just curious, like, who is actually pushing all of those policies out there? Is that your guys' group? Like the sustainability says we have 2 dedicated staff onboarded full-time to support the CAP programs. Are those 2 people, I mean, are they pushing programs? And
I think the 2 people are made up of part-time of 4 people.
Okay.
So, but yes, we all work on the climate action plan along with other departments. So the county's executive office is only assigned implementation of certain programs and policies, but we help coordinate the implementation from all the different departments.
And so there would be an opportunity to hear back from Alejandra and from her team as to how the county's doing as they're working through those initiatives within their own department. So if you can imagine silos that have responsibility to do some GHG reduction within, then there's more of a formal report that's coming from where they stand within those silos, how they're doing against then the plan of what represented that department from doing X, Y, and Z to help with this climate emergency.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I don't know if you have this.
I do.
Yeah, in there is a summary of all the policies and programs in the climate action plan, and the one program called COSY, Greenhouse Gas Strategy Monitoring, and it says, I'll just read it, the county shall regularly implement under the overall direction of the CEO. So the CEO is in charge of the organization with the support of RMA, Public Works, General Services, Fire Department, and other departments as appropriate, the GHG strategy through specific policies, programs, etc. And the greenhouse gas reduction strategy shall consist of a comprehensive program to systematically reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet adopted emission targets and deadlines from all sectors: transportation, building, solid waste, stationary sources, ag, water and wastewater, off-road equipment. So organizationally, it's the CEO's office who's in charge, and it makes sense. Rather than have the planning department, for example, do it, because the CEO does have more overall authority in the county government. So in the CEO's office, the sustainability division is the sub-department that handles the climate action plan.
I think my last comment is, as I start to dig into this stuff, into the county, I mean, I think what I would like to see is somewhere on the Ventura County's website or sustainability, I'm goal oriented. So I'd like to see what the greenhouse gas reduction goals are for 20, 30, 40, and 50, and see a real time where are we in meeting these goals? As these projects come online and as the county pushes this plan, somebody's got to be quantifying what is that reduction for every project and then updating it real time so that the public can monitor our progress. I couldn't find it, but maybe it's already being done.
It's in the works. I can give a little intro.
Yes, go
and,
ahead. Yeah.
Morel, if you want to fill anything in. So basically that's coming.
Okay.
It'll like our e-general plan. I can show you. Have you ever looked at the e-general plan that's online? We're gonna have a climate action plan, so I can show you where to find that. I actually have it brought up, but so basically the e-general plan is something that we've been working on, and it is called, we refer to it as a cap map project, and it'll help with the monitoring and reporting. It's going to be a publicly available web-based platform that will reflect implementation project status, which is what you're looking for. And the monitoring and reporting tool will contain a public dashboard, and that will show the qualitative and quantitative metrics on the CAPS program's success. It has the option to generate reports, record activity metrics that track our annual GHG emissions and emission reductions. And I believe it's expected to be completed later this year in 2023. So anything to add?
No, that's a good summary of that, of what Heather provided. The CAP map would be, I'd say it's in addition to the e-general plan. So the e-general plan right now that you see provides all the programs, CAP programs included, and shows itself information about that. The e-cap would provide updates of how each program is doing. So some of them are not very quantitative and offer GHG reductions. And so some of those would offer them more of a narrative saying we have completed such study that was needed for this, or completed such standards, so on. The ones that do offer quantified GHG reduction or a quantified metric, we identified those, and that would be as suggested as a metric for when agencies are reporting to their CAP programs that they're assigned to. So all that would be visible with a public-facing dashboard for the public to view. And then within an internal agency portal for us to keep tracking of that. But that, yes, that's, as Heather mentioned, the timeline for that is later this year. Another thing to note is our GHG inventory is coming up for 2025, so that will give us a good idea of how our county is doing in terms of reducing our GHG emissions. Yes, those are two things in the works.
So we'll be re-inventorying our inventory, or updating our inventory, or we will be implementing a re-inventory. And then also, we, as part of our county's budget process, I believe on June 21st, there'll be an update to the budget and staffing plan for the climate action plan. And that also gives kind of a brief, it has some tables included in it that just says, gives like a brief overview of the policy and program implementation, like which policies and programs are being implemented, which ones haven't been initiated yet. So I have a copy of last year's budget and staffing plan.
Does that come through this body for review?
It does not, I don't believe, for the budget and staffing plan.
Yeah, not for the budget.
We could, if we spoke up, we
Seems
could
like it
have
would be
input.
appropriate to see what they're gonna spend money on. At least for review and comment.
I believe in the past, there's been presentations on the budget, and I think the last time looking through the folders, there was one done in late 2021. So we can always bring back a presentation too, but I can check about.
I know that one thing that we took a look at in terms of the budget is how do then this group, but the team with sustainability division, how do they actually identify, or is there someone who identifies like grants per se? You know, how can we access grants? Because we know there's millions of dollars out there. And so, you know, so the presentation then came back saying, well, the entire team is responsible for finding grants that this county could apply to so that we can move these implementation programs forward, because we do have things that we can spend the money on that would be actively reducing GHG emissions. So, those are constructively the way that we've looked at the budget before, but not necessarily having this body look at it and approve it. Yeah, it's just kind of done in the background to support the division.
So the purpose of this elected body is to review the county's GHG emissions and reduction plans, which cost money. And a lot of state legislation gets passed and policies get adopted where there's unfunded mandates to reduce GHGs, which SB 1383 is one of them. So I think as this body looks at the impending budget for climate GHG reductions, it'd be good to marry those up against the policies that are in place in the general plan that you're referring to, and make sure that we should at least have the ability to review and comment and forward that to the Board of Supervisors as they have their plate full of lots of things. That's how I thought this body worked.
And so it could be that that's where, the marriage takes place between this is what we'd like to do and these are possibly the grants that we go after, or this is the way that that funding takes place. Yeah, we could entertain.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that agenda item number 10 does a great job of revisiting, which you guys have already probably understood for new board members, the direction of the climate action plan. And the presentation that was in here, I don't know if you got that, but it did have some general categories of greenhouse gas emission reduction strategies and the actual amount of GHGs the county is producing. 2020 is probably a target number you could look at, and others. So,
okay.
My comment, Bill, is I completely agree that we should be making recommendations to the board on budget and staffing. And in my presentation, which is coming up, I'm gonna go to that point exactly. With COVID, I think we got sidetracked into a lot of detail in Zoom meetings. It didn't really go much of anywhere. But in my opinion, that's maybe the strongest thing that we can recommend to the board is how are you going to tackle this task of achieving the county's goals for emission reductions over time. Because we're not there yet. And my personal opinion is we need more staff, technical staff or consultant perhaps to help make that happen. And to Eric's question, charting out the goals, there is a good graphic coming up in the next item here that I think will answer your question.
And so just one other comment here on this item, because we're still on item number 9. So on page 3 of that in your agenda packet, there's a list of topic areas that are in the general plan but lack an implementation program able to demonstrate the reduction of greenhouse gas. So you can see that there's quite a bit there that we could possibly tackle, although at our last meeting was where if a professional couldn't identify them, then what skills do we have to identify these? But these are some of those that don't have measurements. And that was one of the key things as to why this council was identified is, could we tackle then these to give them some quantifiable measurements? Just FYI.
well, no, thank you for that. And the reason I locked onto the budget is because you can't work on anything without money. So when you look at soil productivity, we're an expert in that space. that there needs to be a lot of work done at the county level, and if the county doesn't see that as a priority, then it's not gonna be in the budget. They're gonna focus on building GHG reductions, which is also important for transportation. There's only so much money to go around, and where do you start? And there's a lot of categories here. Or maybe even third-party vendors are working on these, like the waste diversion section. So there's other ways to get these funded. So yeah, I locked onto that because you can't make a difference without dollars and talent to focus on categories to reduce GHGs that you're measuring.
And I think that's where Co-Chair White has been, expressing over the last couple of years that if we identify these things, where's the funding to make it happen, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and in particular, I've commented that I'm an engineer, but not everybody associated with this committee is a technical person, and I worked on some proposals that are gone to the board and will be going to the board. But my opinion is that the county needs to have technical abilities, either staff or a consultant, to do the analysis, because as you'll see in the next presentation, we're not there yet. We don't have a comprehensive strategy to achieve these goals by the timeframes that the board adopted as their goals. And I think it's unreasonable to think that our committee is going to be doing all this technical analysis to do what the county's consultant couldn't do. When the county put together the general plan, they identified the goals, which were basically the state's goals for greenhouse gas emission reductions. And the county said, well, we'll adopt those same goals, but in the measures that were included in the climate action plan, they're insufficient to achieve those goals. More is needed in the way of emission reduction. And to come up with those, we need leadership, we need technical ability to be able to do that. Anyway, I can talk more about it in the next item.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions? Yes.
And I think just to summarize, I think that's kind of where I was going is, I look at these items here and I say electric vehicle charging station. That's a full-time project manager in this county just pushing that single line item. Urban green, there's another project manager. That's all they're doing is focused on urban green and so forth. So I think that's where I was kind of going with staffing. I'm in agreement. This county's serious about it. We should have full-time staff. And that's kind of where I was trying to understand where the division of labor comes from.
Yeah, this list on page 3 that Sylvia just talked about of things that were kind of assigned to us within the climate action plan for us to develop and come to the board with, quantify and come to the board with. I don't know where they came from. I was on the planning commission when the general plan got put together and was very active in proposing a climate action plan. This list of things that the consultant couldn't quantify kind of got thrown into our lap, our collective lap to address. In my mind, it doesn't make sense for us to try to pick and choose from this list of things. And in fact, every single one of the items that have gone on to the board or will go to the board are not on this list. They're things that either I or Dick Baldwin, who was previously on this committee, came forward with. So anyway.
Okay, all right. any further discussion on this item? Do we have anyone with public comments? This is item number 9. So anyone here in the audience? Number 9, no one here in the audience. Anyone online, you could take yourself off of mute or raise your hand. So we'll go through that list. No one? Okay. All right. Heather, anything else you'd like to add to item number 9? No? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so let's move on to then item number 10. So we have a request from Vice Chair White to discuss the climate action plan and CEC direction.
Heather, I think if we could start with the pie chart, I think would be helpful. I put together a draft PowerPoint and Heather polished it up and it's gonna click on it here.
Sorry, there was a slight delay.
Let's go to the pie chart. So according to the county's consultant who put together the general plan and the climate action plan, this is a summary of the greenhouse gas emissions in 2015, which is the base year for what's being what we're trying to reduce. And you can see there that transportation, the orange piece, is 36%. Solid waste, 17%. Water and wastewater, 1%. Off-road equipment, just a hair of a slice. Agriculture, 13%. Stationary sources, 16%, building, 17%. So these are the categories of emissions in Ventura County that are the basis for where we're trying to head. And if you could put the chart that shows the graph. Okay, this graph shows, this was prepared by the general plan consultant. And the solid black line represents the goals of the climate action plan. The 2030 target is 41% below those 2015 levels. 2030, 41% down. 2040, 61% down. 2050, 80% below the 2015 levels. So the black line, the solid black line is where we want to be headed, where we're trying to achieve. And for this committee, is to make recommendations that would help get us to that black line. And this black line is essentially what the state of California has adopted. And I believe is in line with federal goals as well. The blue line is the what is included in the general plan already, and anything that the state and federal government is doing. For example, reducing emissions from motor vehicles is included in this analysis. I can't tell you every assumption that went into it, but the bottom line conclusion is that we're not reducing emissions fast enough to get down to to the goals 2030, 2040, 2050. We need to do more. So the county and with maybe help from this committee needs to come up with additional greenhouse gas emission reductions to get down to that black line. So those are the goals. And we're not there. We need to do more. How do we get there? So any questions on those two charts?
So you're saying effectively the delta, the area we need to work in is between the blue and the black lines.
Correct.
Yeah.
So let's go up to the beginning of the presentation, please. And it has to do, I'm addressing what my opinion is as to what we should be doing and what we're not maybe capable of doing, regardless of what the marching orders were for this committee. Number one there, the role of this committee is fundamentally is to advise the board on climate action. I know that we have this list of possible
27 items.
27 items on page 3 that we could work with, but setting that aside, fundamentally, we're here to advise the board, and there's nothing on this list that talks about budget, for example, as Bill mentioned. It's very important. So if we can come up with a recommendation on staffing or budget, in my opinion, we should be making that recommendation. Number 2, the 52 policies, and there are more than are on page 3 that don't have implementation programs. These are the policies that the consultant could not quantify. And I think it's unrealistic to expect our council to perform this work because we lack the technical staff or a consultant to accomplish the requested technical analysis. If technical staff or a consultant were available to the CEO's office, we might not need to be involved in this. The CEO's office is responsible, not this committee. And the other point I make is that these unquantified potential policies may not be that important. I'll give an example. Permeable pavement is one of the items on that list, and somebody might want to dive into analyzing the climate benefits of permeable paving. It would probably be a good PhD thesis, but I doubt if it's really going to be important for Ventura County. So I don't think that this COSLL asking us to develop these policies makes sense. I have anything that I've come forward with as a recommendation is not on this list. It's things like building energy, landscape equipment was done by Dick Baldwin. We talked about capping abandoned oil wells, not on this list. Everything that has been recommended is not on this list of 52.
Yeah, we even had public relations program identified that
Yeah,
went to the board of supervisors.
Public education, yes. So that's my opinion. It's unrealistic to think that our committee is going to take unquantifiable policies and develop them and come up with what's the emission reductions, how much is it going to cost, and present those to the board. I think that we can think of anything, but it's not realistic without technical consultant. If we had a consultant or a staff person, if Heather had the time, I know she's very smart and could probably do a lot of this technical analysis. But it's like you say, some of these things are full-time jobs to attend. We don't have a technical staff to help us analyze these things. I've done it and Dick Baldwin did it. We're both ex-APCD directors and engineers, and we have the background to do that, but I don't have the time or inclination to dive into 52 additional things. It takes a lot of time to do one of these things. I think the county needs some more staff. Next page, please. As I said, I was an APCD director, as was Dick Baldwin, who formerly was on this committee, and he quit because he was frustrated that not enough was getting done, and he didn't want to waste his time. I advised him not to quit, but he did. The APCD has an advisory committee that's appointed by the Board of Supervisors to advise the APCD. It's similar to what the Climate Emergency Council is. It advises the APCD, but the APCD Advisory Committee does not develop air pollution control rules. Air pollution control rules reduce emissions of pollution, analogous to what the climate action plan needs to do. I don't think that this committee should be any different than the advisory committee to the APCD. And I read this previously, item 4, the county shall implement the greenhouse gas strategy through specific policies. The reduction strategy shall consist of a comprehensive program to systematically reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet adopted targets and deadlines. That's what needs to happen. And I think the CEO's office needs to either have staff on board who can do this kind of analysis or hire a consultant to do it. I want to go to the next page, please. Okay, the last item there. The county shall prepare public reports on the results of greenhouse gas strategy implementation and monitoring and present these reports to the board 2 years after the approval of the general plan. And in my mind, what that means is that somebody from the CEO's office probably would go to the board and present in a board meeting, a public meeting, where we're at. Where are we on this chart of the blue line versus the black line? How close are we? Are we getting there? Do we need to do more? I know that there was a report made 2 years, but it really didn't present that. I looked at it again this morning online, the video of the meeting, the board meeting, September 20th of last year. And you could look at it and you'll see that it really didn't. The planning director, Dave Ward, made a presentation on the general plan, and there was some reference to things that are in the climate action plan, but it really didn't answer the question, where are we at? Where do we need to go? And I think that was missing, and it really needs to happen. You know, the public is very concerned about climate change and global warming, and they need to know how the county's doing. And that really hasn't happened. It needs to happen. And Heather, could you explain again this program, or maybe you wanted to, on the reporting? Yeah, say it again, map,
Cap map.
which will do what? Say it again.
Morel, did you want, how did we come up with cap map then?
I think we were just looking for something that had a good catchy name to it. But yes, Cap Map will offer progress reports on how we're doing on our CAP programs. So some of those you say are not quantitative, they're more qualitative in saying that you have to complete a certain standard or complete a certain report. The ones that do offer, we did our own analysis to see which ones would offer more of a quantitative metrics and provided those so that when the next time when the CAP map is completed and we do the reporting, then there would be that suggestion for that data metric for people to report on. The ones that can then be calculated for GHG reductions, that will be done through our portal that we have for CAP map. And in our previous item, Councilmember Crowe mentioned about like real-time GHG reductions. That will be, the timeline for that would be like at the beginning of the year, where once a year offer that reporting and then show it. So it wouldn't offer real-time GHG reductions, but just a standpoint based on data up to that point of how we're doing. But yes, that's just to show the progress of our CAP programs. As you see, not many of those offer exact numbers for GHG reductions. And that's the discussion that we're going to have.
So just to understand, so the climate action plan has a big list of policies and programs that are designed to address the goals, the climate goals. But we've seen that they're insufficient to meet the goals. Is there a discussion of additional things that need to be done? Will that be a part of the CAP map? And who's doing that? Who's coming up with these additional measures that will need to be done?
So CAP map, yes, offers the CAP program progress. We understood that, or at least like CEO sustainability staff, that we're not really capturing how is the county doing in terms of GHG reductions just with CAP programs. So another option or discussion that we've had is creating these forms called activity metrics that give more community-wide idea of how we're doing for those type of activities. And some of those would be such as like installing EV chargers. And if there's some form of calculation for reducing GHG emissions from that, then that's done. Or installing one of our CAP programs being adding more bike path miles, then working with the assumption of how much GHG reductions would occur from having more bike weight miles. So there are some, I would say, some activities that we do that maybe might not be captured to CAP programs. Heather can offer more information from what VCCEC does or 3C REN. Well, I guess within indirectly it's mentioned in our CAP programs, but that itself, we're working on that being captured. So I guess that can offer some idea of it. I think the best way to get the big picture of how we're doing it in terms of a one point in time is through a GHG inventory, which I know takes a lot of time to do.
And now that's coming up when, the new inventory?
I believe we'll probably start working on it in 2024 because it's one of the policies is due in 2025. So it takes a while to put together an inventory. So I would suspect early in 2024, we'd be gathering that data. We're also, like Morel mentioned, we have programs. We have a regional electric vehicle blueprint that we're implementing. And so we're actually working with all of our cities, special districts, school districts, businesses, and community members with EV outreach and also transitioning vehicles as well as putting in charging infrastructure. We have an EV coach, so it's a contract worker, but she is a full-time dedicated person working on anything related to electric vehicles. In our inventory, the built environment and transportation are the biggest greenhouse gas emission. And so we're working on the EV footprint. We're applying for a regional grant, working with our cities, a really big grant from the federal government called the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant. That grant is due in less than 2 weeks. So we're spending time working on that. We are also working with all of our cities and school districts, special districts, again, on a regional climate action plan, and we believe we'll get some funding from the federal government. That application, it's non-competitive, is due tomorrow, so I believe as long as we get our application in, we'll be working on a regional climate action plan with all of our cities, and that'll set us up for implementation funding, hopefully, that we'll apply to in the next couple of years. That the implementation funding program and application hasn't been disclosed yet. The EPA is still working on it, but like I said, that application is due tomorrow. So hopefully we will get funding for a regional climate action plan and help all of our cities that are working on climate action plans. Some of them are implementing those, helping the county implement those, and then helping the cities that don't have climate action plans develop climate action plans that they like.
That's great.
And then I'm not sure this is, I don't have a lot of details. It's not a program that I work on, but the Tri-County Regional Energy Network, 3C-REN, I believe on Friday it was announced that they got additional funding to expand, as I mentioned earlier. 3C-REN is a residential energy, well, it's an energy efficiency program. It has incentives for residential, it has a code coach, it helps with workforce development in the energy sector. I believe they just got a significant chunk of funding for the tri-counties, so that's Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura, to expand to the public sector and non-residential sector. And so the details for the 3C-REN expansion will be coming out in the near future. I can find out more information to also share with everyone. I just don't have a lot of those details because it just happened on Friday afternoon.
That last thing you mentioned, to expand 3C-REN into non-residential is the essence of the recommendation that this group made last August.
So we are doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes and working on things.
So that's great because until you announced that, there really wasn't an effort made to support a program to retrofit existing buildings in the county, all electric, to reduce natural gas consumption. But it sounds like it's announced that you got that program, or?
It was announced by the California Public Utilities Commission on Friday afternoon, and so I believe the 3C-REN staff are probably working on a press release and other information to get out. I don't know the timing of all that, but I can follow up.
Yeah, that's something that wasn't in the original climate action plan, a source of emissions that could be reduced, and so that's great to hear. Could we go to the next chart and then I'll be done? If you bear with me. This has to do with what Bill and I were talking about previously, that the CEO shall present to the board a proposed budget and staffing plan, including technical consultants, to implement the climate action plan, shall update the budget and staffing plan each year. And I asked the question, has this happened? Because the presence of technical staff or a consultant are not apparent to me. Now, you mentioned in June, what's the date?
June 21st.
So is there a request being made for a technical consultant or a staff person to help do this kind of technical analysis needed?
I will have to follow up with that information.
And lastly, item 8 there, I just comment that the overall leadership for this climate action plan and technical staff, or maybe especially technical staff, are needed. Could be a consultant to implement the climate action plan. I'm all for lobbying for that, campaigning for that, asking for that, because it's not apparent that anybody's around to do that work.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair White. Any questions or comments from the council? Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Cameron.
Yeah, day one. This is awesome. Thank you for the update. I find it difficult for this council to be effective to advise the Board of Supervisors, because you're finding out a bunch of information about what's going on today that's happened. And, you know, for us to be effective in advising the Board of Supervisors on the plan, we have to be updated on what's going on with the plan. And you're not going to be able to work on anything without knowing where the budget is and what the focus of where the plan is and where money's being spent. And if you go back to 2006, when the climate change law passed, AB 32, it only focused on 5 major industry sectors, and that was transportation, energy, wastewater, and agriculture. And if you take a look at all those things, they fit in the 5 buckets. And there's already a lot of legislation and regulation that's been passed by the state of California that impacts this plan. As an example, the waste section, 13%, is already impacted by SB 1383, mandating the diversion of organics from landfills to reduce methane from the landfills, which is a gigantic greenhouse gas. And you have 2 landfills in this county emitting methane at the landfill. So when you look at the other categories, transportation, energy, and agriculture, there's a lot of other state mandates also reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And I think when the 2025 numbers come out, you'll be disappointed. And they'll probably be between the green line and the business as usual line, because these plans aren't effective. So the state required in 2022 for 50% of the organic waste to be diverted from the landfills by 2022. And here we are in 2023, and only 5% got diverted. So the hopes of that law having an impact on emissions at the landfills is woefully behind. So without the measuring tools for us to have some sort of guidance on where are we with these things, it makes it difficult when policies are being implemented, programs are being implemented, and we have no visibility of them in advance. If any one of the supervisors were to call us and say, hey, did you know about this plan? Then we're going to have to say, well, no, I just found out yesterday. So I think anything that's coming up in front of the board, we should be aware of it in advance so that we can review and comment on plans being put in place. So for day one, I'm caught up. Thank you for the report. There's a lot of work to do here, and we want this to be an effective council. We don't want to be a lame duck council where we're sitting here going, well, I'm not sure what's going on, because then we're all kind of wasting our time. So thank you for the update.
Yeah.
Phil, that was very, very helpful.
One of the things too that as Clay was identified as our, staff person, et cetera, and then Heather has continued, is that every time we meet, there is an update from the group. So we've made that as like an official agenda item so that we can grab a hold of the information. There's so much information that the team here is handling that, could we get like a augmented report that says, hey, these are the things going on. And so you heard a little bit about what the massive amount of work that the sustainability division is doing. And then Heather is the one that is then presenting it to us here. So we get it maybe in real time is how it's happening. But it's just a snippet of, then everything else that the team is handling.
Yeah, I don't doubt that they're not doing lots of work, but it should come in the form of a staff report, so we have a chance to digest it before we get here, or else it's hard to make a comment. I have lots of resources, and having something in advance to give me an opportunity to review it, I can bring hopefully some value to what I know that's going on in the state of California.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council here?
Well, I had suggested this be a discussion, and we are having a discussion, I guess. And knowing the board is going to look at the budget for this program in June next month, I would be inclined to point out that the climate action plan needs some technical help and some technical budget in order to really take a hold of this and say, hey, here's where we're at. We need to do more. Here's some ideas. We don't really have that technical staff. I love what these guys, Heather and Ellie, are doing, and what Clay did, and Alejandra. But in fact, we need more. We need some technical staff to really make this climate action plan work and meet those targets. So I don't know what you guys think. Would you be receptive to a motion to make a kind of general recommendation that the CEO's office consider adding technical staff or a consultant to this program because it's lacking?
Yeah, I think with regard to your comment on the 52 priority items, without any kind of technical support, whether it's staff or consultants, it's very difficult for us to prioritize against the budget the county's action plan goals. So I would support a motion that makes a recommendation to have a bucket for technical support.
I would support that. I would support that.
Okay, so.
I see heads nodding.
There's-
So,
So
we're
there's
going to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah,
Did you have something else?
No, I was just
Councilmember
gonna say, if
Ventura?
someone would be, I'm kind of a procedural person. So if someone would put that into some verbiage as a motion, but you're about to make a comment, yeah. That's what I was gonna say, that's what we need is, let's make it a formal.
rather than
Yeah,
just staff, I
absolutely.
think it's support, financial support, technical financial support for this body to be able to.
So we do have a person here who wants to make a public comment on item number 10. So could we entertain the public comments first before we go the route of the motion? So David Gilbertson. So you're here. So you have 3 minutes, and we are on item number 10, and you have a
Well,
you have a
first,
comment.
thank everyone. Welcome. Thank you for volunteering. I doubt you're paid for this,
Yeah.
but your expertise is incredibly important. We need thoughtful consideration here, and so your public service is appreciated. This is important conversation you're having here, and I'm glad to be here. And I want to particularly point out former planning commissioner, Mr. White, for all his leadership on this issue. The Ventura County General Plan and Climate Action Plan took years of public process to go through. And so now the implementation piece is just so critical, really is. And so, Mr. Camarillo, what you're talking about is so right on. If you don't have the staffing capacity to help implement the climate action plan for the county. And in fact, you're really leaders for the whole Ventura County. And I'm from Camarillo, the city of Camarillo, and we're developing a climate action plan now. But what we're looking to is what have you done in the county? And, you know, there's some bad news from the IPCC report. I'm sure you're aware of it. And you may also be aware that Ventura County is the fastest warming county in the lower 48. So it's time to get on with this action. The county needs to dedicate funding for technical expertise. The county needs to put in the adequate budget to help Heather and her staff. And they shouldn't be the only unit. It ought to be in every department's work plan, the lens of climate action that needs to implement on building electrification, whether it's on transportation, on solid waste, on ag, all of it needs to be part of their work plan and their work performance appraisals. Everybody in the city, whether it's Camarillo or Ventura, this is too important to act on. There is IRA money available. I'm really glad that it's non-competitive, but if it is a competitive grant, can we be competitive? Do we have to provide a match from the county? If we don't have it in the budget, do we have the capacity to raise sales tax? Do we have to go back out to the voters? This is so important, and I appreciate all the work you all are doing. Stay on it. Don't be discouraged. We need you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else here in the general public wishing to speak on item number 10? Okay. Do we have anybody who is online that wishes to speak? I have a public comment here for item number 10. So we see Francis Lee. Go ahead, we'll take you off of mute and we see your hand raised. Go ahead, Francis.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm so happy to hear you all talking about this issue. Deputy White, it's, you know, having it all laid out like that, like where we're at and the problems that you're having getting to these greenhouse gas emission reductions is just spot on. And I think Council Camarillo, is it? I can't see the names on those cards.
Sorry,
But
yeah.
I think you're right. You're right on the money. And thank you very much to David Gilbertson for all your words. I can't say anything better than that. And thank you. I want to thank you. I know Moore Park has benefited from the work that the CEO, the Sustainability Division, has done to get the climate action plans going for Moore Park. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And keep going. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Francis. Anyone else on camera that would like to speak from the public? So we're just going to scroll through and seeing no one else off mute or hands raised.
Chair,
Yes.
a comment from Don Price, just mentioning that emission reductions may be occurring but are not being measured. This is something the council can work on.
Okay, thank you. So that was part of a meeting chat from someone who is online. Oops. You know how you can get out of there is just click back on the chat and it'll disappear. Is there an arrow up on the left? Click back there. Yeah, there you go. Nope. All right, we're just having a little bit of technical difficulties here.
There you go. Go to more.
Sorry, where?
More.
More.
We should be able to see the chat. Click on that.
Sorry, there's a delay.
Yeah. So if you just
Or
click
go to
chat,
chat, yeah.
just re-click that and it'll take it out, or should. There we go.
Yay.
Thank you,
Yay,
Heather.
Heather.
All right. So
I apologize.
I did see Councilmember Dottori, you have your hand up.
I was just gonna say, I gotta come up with a motion
Yes.
that I'd gladly take any friendly comments.
Okay.
And so it would be the VCECC recommend or request funding or financial support for assignment of technical staff or consultant for the VCECC for the purpose of fulfillment of the county gap. And I'm open to any.
I would just change that a little bit. I like
That's what I'm
that.
looking for.
I would just take out CEC
Okay,
because who really should have the technical staff is the CEO's office.
okay,
And then thereby be available to Heather Morelli and all those people and to us
In the sustainability division.
in the sustainability division. Because I think we need to take the focus off of CEC as the important agency. It's the CEO office who's the most important.
okay. Very good, I like that. Okay, so let me try it again. So it'd be, the motion would be the CEO recommend, with the word, here, let me put this out to the group, recommend or request, what would you think would be more appropriate?
West.
Request?
Yeah.
Request, okay. Funding or financial support. Either one of the same, but again, semantics.
I think it's good enough.
Funding,
Funding. Yeah.
funding,
Mhm.
all right. For assignment of technical staff or consultant for the, and take out the CEC, okay, for the purpose of fulfillment of county cap. And you had different wording for that part,
I think it's great.
just like as it is.
I like that.
Okay, so let me say it back one more time to the group. The CEO requests funding for assignment of technical staff or consultant for the purpose of fulfillment of the county cap.
CEC requests, yeah.
Okay,
The CEC request.
This is, yeah, this is the Climate
Oh.
Emergency Council request.
I'm sorry.
I think it leaves it really broad in that motion, so it allows them for some flexibility. Yeah. Okay, so that's the motion. Is there a second for
A
the motion?
second.
Okay, so Heather, do you want to do a roll call, please?
Yes.
And is Councilmember Parra still online?
She was. Oh,
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great, thank you.
Vice Chair White,
Yes.
Councilmember Syed,
Yes.
Chair Munoz Snell,
Yes.
Councilmember Dottori,
Yes,
Councilmember Juan Wiltshire. Yes. Councilmember Herrera, and that is Dora. Councilmember Barola. Councilmember Parra is online.
Yes.
Councilmember Camarillo
Yes.
and Councilmember Porter.
Yes.
All right, so a couple of other things too, just so that, we continue this discussion. It seems like we're flipping this triangle upside down and, with the request of what we all passed in the motion, but also too, the fact that we need to know about the budget that is assigned to this group. And just so that everybody knows is that the Climate Emergency Council is for the County of Ventura and the unincorporated areas. We really have no jurisdiction with the cities. But in essence, so I just wanted to form that so that we don't like think that we can implement this and it'll be done in Camarillo or Moore Park or Oxnard.
Right.
But there are those elements that say, the 3C RAN, Sustainability Division, Heather, Alejandro Morelli, they are going to begin filtering information about, best practices and what's going on, so that we could
gain an understanding overall, like what is available, what is being implemented, what are then those best practices, what are those places that we're all learning from. And whether it ends up being quantified or it's qualitative, there is some effort of knowing what everyone else is doing, but that's not technically our influence, so to speak. Just wanted to make sure we communicated that out. But I do see that, you know, the budget's really important. Reporting, whether out to us and what we end up doing, is really important as well. And then having a consultant that's available. So those are kind of the key words that I heard, or the categories that I heard in the discussion. And of course, then leadership and that technical. Yes, go ahead.
You know, on the idea of coordinating with the city, there is a policy in the climate action plan, COS 8.3, coordinate climate action plan with cities and organizations. The county shall facilitate the coordination of its climate action plan implementation and maintenance with the cities in the county, the APCD, and other organizations to promote countywide collaboration on addressing climate change. So it's part of the climate action plan to do that, and should be.
Vice Chair White, we do a lot of that coordination through the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, because we have a board of directors. It's made up of most of the cities, a city council member. And so, you know, for example, last week we had a meeting with our energy champions. VCRA used to be more energy focused. However, now it's kind of under the umbrella of sustainability, so it focuses on climate action, adaptation, resiliency. And so we have in the past coordinated, we had a California Energy Commission grant to develop energy action plans, which were the start of a climate action plan. It had most of the components. The only thing that was missing were emission reduction measures that were associated with sectors outside of energy, because it was funded by the Energy Commission. However, it had an inventory and a forecast, and we created templates and we shared those with the cities. But we did work closely with the city of Moore Park, Thousand Oaks, and city of Ventura, because at the time they knew that they were going to undergo a general plan update process, which is what they're working on now. So we do mostly through VCRA coordinate with all of the cities, just because that's the branch of our division that has that regional coordination.
Can I make a comment?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead, Councilmember.
So the county, even though it has no oversight over policy within the cities, is a regional player. And a lot of these infrastructures to support greenhouse gas emission reductions are in the county that are supporting the cities. So I'm glad to hear that VCREA is trying to move beyond energy, because the two big landfills are in the county serving the whole community, and the compost center that we're building in the county going to be serving all the communities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I could see transportation infrastructure and utility infrastructure most likely going to be in the county to help support these communities' general plans. So is VCREA the right vehicle to make sure that they're embodying all 5 categories of greenhouse gas emission reductions?
Historically, VCREA, we reach out to the cities and our special districts and school districts and our members and partners, and kind of ask them what they're interested in collaborating on. During last week's Energy Champions meeting, the focus a lot was on microgrids, adaptation or climate resiliency, electric vehicle infrastructure. And that may have been because there was a discussion about the grants that were applying to. And I know through the Green Business Program, we do some outreach in regarding waste and waste reduction. But historically, waste has not been brought up by the city staff or our partners, but besides through the Green Business Program implementation. But that's something we're gonna check in with our cities. We now have in-person meetings. It was kind of hard during COVID when everyone was remote, but, and we kind of didn't have as many meetings with our partners, but we're getting back to more of the check-ins with all the cities and special districts and school districts to see.
Thank you.
Great. All right, thank you. So let's move on to item number 11. Council member comments and future agenda items. So we'll start with you.
I would just comment that each of us who was assigned to this council by a board member, that we communicate with each of those board members about the motion, your motion that we approved today. Asking for technical staff, this should happen right away, and if the meeting is next month, they need to be aware of it. And they need to go into that budget meeting aware of what we recommended and why we need it, why the county needs it, not why we need it, why the county needs it. So I will talk to Matt Levere and let him know that this is urgent.
Okay, thank you. Member Crowe?
I think what I would say is, and forgive me, I have a family obligation next month, so I will not be here. But this EV blueprint, that intrigues me quite a bit. I was wondering if we could set up whoever that PM is to come in here and present what is this EV blueprint, because I think it'll have huge effects on the transportation and building energy segments for greenhouse gas emissions. So I'd like to find out what that plan is, and put some input into it. And then another idea that I've been brewing on is right now offshore California, we've got scattered, I think there's like a half a dozen oil and gas platforms that are in various stages of abandonment right now. One or two of them is the first two platforms that you see as you come into Carpinteria. So it's actually state lands, but that's the closest to for Ventura County. One idea that I have is, how can we use that infrastructure? The plan right now, to my understanding, is they plan on removing it down to the seafloor. But right now we have an infrastructure as far as renewable energy goes. You know, how can we utilize that platform, that existing infrastructure for renewables, for tidal electrification? So anyhow, one of the ideas I would propose is seek funding from the county to investigate utilizing that platform for some sort of renewable energy project. What that is, I have no idea, but it is there. It's years away from being abandoned, so it is a resource that perhaps we could take advantage of.
Thank you. Councilmember Said.
One of the things I want to bring up, I know I saw the pie chart, 13% comes from agriculture. I know Bill is more expert on this. One thing I have noticed is I'm driving around, a lot of farms burning. I mean, all these, at the end of the crop, you have this burning off. Is that, aren't there better ways to get rid of that at the end of, when the strawberry season is done or whatever, and then is it burning is the only solution? Why don't they mulch or do something else? I know I saw one of the items here, agricultural waste. I'm sure all this has been discussed before, but I was just curious as to why that is done. But it does produce a lot of small things. I'm curious why that and why not something else.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna sort of throw that out as to, is there a way to reduce that? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so as this item is not agendized, then we can't get into a discussion.
Okay.
But it could be referred back if there's a very simple answer. And then if we want to move it into an agenda for next time, we could do that. So we have to play by the rules here with what's on the agenda and what isn't. So
Pretty simple answer. I'm happy to bring it back if you want, or I can, like, isn't all of these 9 times out of 10, money changes behavior. So because burning is cheaper than pushing, grinding, and mulching and composting, when there's burn days available, authorized by the APCD, then
And
they
the fire department.
and the fire department, then they burn because it's cheaper.
Yes.
Keeping in mind that trees above the soil are biogenic carbon, it's already in the atmosphere, so releasing it was carbon already in the atmosphere. So when you pull it out of the ground and put it in the atmosphere is a problem. So they could do something different, but it's a financial, you'd have to find the money to keep them.
So I mean, we are so far, and I don't want to discuss, but that's why I
You
like
can
that.
provide a, yeah, okay.
I can investigate, there might be, I'm thinking of a presentation that I've seen, with our tri-county working together, so I can investigate, and see if maybe that could be a presentation next month. Summer.
Okay. Council Member Para, do you have anything for this item, item 11? No, okay. All right, so we'll work back around the table. Councilmember DeTore,
Thank you.
Councilmember Cameron.
Yeah, thank you. Great meeting. I echo what Phil said about making sure we let our board of supervisors know about the funding
Yeah.
requirements necessary for the technical side. Future agenda items, not necessarily next meeting, but most counties that I work in and most private sector, large industry that's trying to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions all believe they can get to 75 to 80%. But there needs to be a drawdown to get the rest of the way. So Agriman today is working on a lot of drawdown solutions through carbon farming. So involving the agricultural community in Ventura County to help draw down carbon would be a tremendous asset to this county.
Sounds like a future presentation.
Yeah.
Very much.
Okay, Councilmember Winworcester.
I don't have any more agenda items. I know that Erin was supposed to speak today, but due to other issues, he wasn't able to, but I think he will be presenting next week for the meeting about Ormond Beach. So I'm very excited about that presentation. I do want to bring an opportunity to learn more about the extreme heat. CEC has a webinar coming up on June 1st from 5:30 to 7 p.m. I'll give Heather the information so she can email it to you all. So it's called Beat the Extreme Heat. It's just to talk about how I think one of the public comments mentioned that Ventura County is one of the fastest warming counties. And so I would like to bring more awareness of that. And I believe that this would be a good opportunity to learn more. Also, there's other nonprofits like Cause joining in. I'm personally not going to speak, but I know there's other people in Ventura County and agencies that will speak in this webinar. So that's what I would like to bring forward.
And you said that CEC is presenting this?
Yes, CEC is Beat the Extreme Heat.
Who's CEC? It's not us.
Community Environmental Council.
Thank you, okay. I just wanted to clarify, it's not us.
Yeah, it's the other C's. Those other guys.
I sometimes refer to them, because there's a lot of CECs in my room, so the little CEC.
Okay.
And the Energy Commission is a big CEC.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Those were middle school.
No, I
We're the
tend to
teenagers.
refer to VCCEC just
Yeah.
to clarify.
Okay, thank you.
Your turn, so
All right, great.
you have anything?
Very good discussions. I really appreciated everybody's comments and appreciated your presentation as well. I'd like for us to, continue moving forward, like how do we plan our work plan, right? Because we don't have a plan, we don't know how to work it. So continuing the discussion of how we then formulate and how do we want to then move forward as a committee, as a council. So we'll get that on a future
We
agenda.
make recommendations to you as the chair on a plan, or is that
This is when we recommend what we want to see on future agendas, whether it's a presentation, whether we want to do anything here. There's also then, after we break from this meeting, you can always communicate directly with Heather. about things that you'd like to see on the agenda. Yeah. Yes.
One thing I'd like to talk about in the future, maybe the next meeting, would be emission inventories. You know, the pie chart is a summary of the emission inventory 2015. And that's really the basis for what the climate action plan is all about, trying to reduce, trying to shrink that piece of pie, that pie. And the way the board adopted the general plan, climate action plan, they said to update the emission inventory every 5 years. And in my mind, that's not enough, that it should be annually or biannually, something more frequently than 5 years, because things are happening so quickly on programs adopted by the state or the feds or others that we need to be aware of. And that's where you capture it, is quantifying the emission inventory. So I'd like to talk about that, and maybe are recommending that they do it more frequently.
One item too is that if June 21st is going to be when the Board of Supervisors takes up the budget, I know we'll probably be meeting like right after that. So maybe there would be a budget update for our group, just to hear about what's going on. Let's see. Should possibly have the next meeting.
28th.
Yeah, the 28th, okay. Okay, so public comments for this item number 11. Anybody in the audience here that wants to speak on this future agenda items and council member? Yes, so go ahead, David.
Could the sustainability office, or like, I don't know where it would fall, provide an update on the grants that are federal and state that could help deliver on shrinking the pie? Inflation Reduction Act funding or infrastructure bill funding? Or if there's a state administration of those federal dollars, and whether there's a match required to access the federal money.
A
Does that
great
make
point.
sense?
Okay, yes, thank you. Yeah. Any comment here? Okay. And anyone online? So you can raise your hand. You could take yourself off of mute. All right. So seeing none, then so we go to item number 12, which is adjourn. And so we'll adjourn for this month's meeting for the Ventura County Climate Emergency Council. And our next meeting date will be June the 28th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job, Carol. You ran a great meeting. You did. Helps to be a mayor.
I've been working for the
Nice, yeah.
right. I'm mostly focused on Ventura County Regional Energy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Stuff, according to